It's already doing much better than my last little book, The Little Book of Anal Cysts. That book didn't sell at all.
I'm sitting on it right now. Welcome to another edition of the Law Offices of Quibble, Squabble, and Bicker on this March 2nd, 2022. We have an incredibly special guest today. We have noted writing consultant, international man about town, John Vorhaus, who will be discussing his newest creation, as well as possibly helping us out with our client for today, which is I Can See Clearly Now Ukraine Is Gone, or Don't Ukraine on My Parade.
Behold, trapped in a hellscape of their own invention, socially unaware old white men bound by the pretense of being fake lawyers yet knowing no law, no exquisite Latin terminology, they are inexplicably compelled to quibble over minutia, squabble over triflings, and bicker like those who value their backyards far too highly without even knowing the difference between an easement and an alleyway. At this very moment, you have entered the heart of the Law Offices of Quibble, Squabble, and Bicker. Let's get started.
Hi, I'm Sid.
And I'm Nancy.
Come on out to Sid and Nancy's Nickel Emporium, where everybody gets a nickel for whatever you're trading.
We have purple nickels, green nickels, even nickel nickels.
Bring in an envelope and you get a nickel.
Bring in a couch and you get a nickel.
You know you want a shiny new nickel for that antique dresser, so bring it right in.
Everyone knows pennies are worthless, so why settle for less than a nickel?
Have no space for that brand new stove? We'll take care of it for you. Trade it in for a nickel. We've got bags of them.
Some people say don't take wooden nickels, but we'll give them to you so you don't have to take them.
So remember, at Sid and Nancy's Nickel Emporium, no one walks away with empty pockets. Everybody gets a nickel.
Each nickel is certified legal tender for the United States government, not to be used as food items. Sid and Nancy's Nickel Emporium cannot be held responsible for any nickels stuck in anyone's body orifices. Please use nickels responsibly.
Another fake sponsor, but I think they might have given us a nickel for that one.
That seems like an unsound business model, Ben. I don't know.
Unsound.
Did you have to go to the store to get it?
To get the nickel? Yeah, that's right.
The business model's unsound.
Had to trade in a shoe.
The part I absolutely love best is Sid and Nancy. I found myself wondering how many people in the audience get that reference on its deepest level. You know, it's like, oh, why did they just pick the name Sid and Nancy? Well, if you were hip in 1980, you would know that.
Or if you've watched a few movies in the last 20 years.
Or if you've watched a few movies, yeah.
Right, because those are the actual names of the people in American Gothic. So that's...
Yeah.
Have there been Sid and Nancy sightings just like Elvis? Do some people think they're really still alive?
I think only if they go to the cemetery.
Hmm.
Oh, well, you can't even see them. It's just headstones. But maybe they're like Elvis. And people they didn't really die.
I don't know. I couldn't tell you. However, that's our fake sponsor for today.
And they're running a nickel emporium.
That's right. They are.
The truth is out there.
If you want to get a nickel, that's the place to go. All right. Well, let's welcome our guest, John Vorhaus, who was last on our show last July, which was about 9 months, once apparently we impregnated him, because 9 months later he came up with a baby called The Little Book of Stand-Up. And he is...
Am I the father or you?
I believe it was like a mutual insemination, like whenever they combine.
A DP.
Well, there's lots of... Oh, what, John?
There's lots of what?
A DP, a double penetration.
Brendan was responsible as well, though. He was here last time.
I was
a
going to
TP,
say
a
that,
triple.
That's right, TP.
Yeah, I was TP. I was going to say if there's lots of dad jokes in the book, it's probably Matt. The DNA would prove that Matt was the father.
Oh, really?
Evidence of dad jokes? Is that what you're promoting?
Yes.
I think I could see that. I could see that. Not the case, but I could see it. Evidence of dad joke.
What's going on?
I was
wow.
testing out a little thing on Zoom, and apparently it did that. That's quite fascinating.
We're art.
We are art, but now
We could be Sid and Nancy.
We become very tiny that way. Maybe this would be better.
I like it. We can play games. Okay, I'm gonna see this imaginary ball I have here. I want to toss it up in the air. Oh no, wait.
Did I look like the scream from Edward Munch?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, no.
You actually constantly look like the scream from Edward Munch.
Yeah.
Do
you
It's
know-
more like Baron Munchhausen.
Do you know where Munch got his vivid colors from? Why his skies are so orangey like they are?
Didn't it involve
Was he
like
colorblind?
LSD or something?
No, it involved Krakatoa, east of Java. The volcanic explosion of Krakatoa threw so much stuff into the air that it made sunsets intense all around the world for a couple of years.
I feel very
And so
tiny
that's what he
now.
was painting.
Well,
Wow.
Krakatoa
It would
would
be
do
f-
that.
Now, the next level is when we can control ourselves and we can jump around. We can start jumping from level to level, like Joust. Do you remember the video game Joust?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
It
yeah.
had
I love that
feature.
game.
I do
Yeah.
remember that one.
I once had a nervous breakdown to that video game.
To Joust?
I skipped a final in college and played Joust, and I was screaming in the video game parlor, and people were afraid to even confront me. I was such a psycho.
I think you made a wise choice.
I have to get smaller.
Look at that.
Let's get small.
Somehow,
Yeah, really.
somehow I got stuck on the
teach,
floor.
Don't call on me.
All
Well,
right,
these are some impressive new tools. I can certainly see being excited about this view if I'm teaching a class, which I do on Zoom a lot. And if I could situate students in seats like that, that might make me feel a little bit better.
this could work too. Get an
Ah,
auditorium.
there you go.
Look, it's a size.
There you go. But I can't cope with the flanging though, the way
Yeah.
that stuff.
The electronic stuff.
Yeah, it's
That's our technical
It-
term for it is electronic stuff.
electronic stuff. It
Yeah.
vexes me. It offends my sensibility.
I just blew smoke in your
But
face.
wait, and now I got to come up because I look completely ridiculous. So this boardroom, whose motto is "Deliver happiness"?
I don't know.
Hitler.
Hitler. It's Putin's
I
motto.
don't
Isn't
think
that what's
so.
going on right now?
Yeah.
Putin is involved with delivering
Wow.
happiness to Ukraine. That's why he's invading. All right, let's just get back to normal. Here we go. All right. So sorry for that.
Well, that was
normally
a,
that
that was a
doesn't
trip
show-
around the block.
Normally that doesn't show up, and I was like, oh, it finally has like reappeared on my Zoom settings. I'm like, well, I got to give it a shot today. It would have been better if Brendan would have been around, because then we could have had like a real conference room happening. Anyway, John, you've written a new book, and I was wondering what kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Reception have you gotten for this book, the Little Book of Stand-Up? Have
Oh,
you been giving it to
I'm
stand-up comics?
actually-
And
I'll work through the jokes first, and then I'll tell you the real answer. The book is started out really strong. It's launched quite strong. It's already doing much better than my last little book, the Little Book of Anal Cysts. That book didn't sell at all.
I'm sitting on it right now.
Yeah, it's
Quite
broken
helpful.
into the top. It's broken into the Amazon top 10 digits, so that's good. And
Top 10 digits.
it's gonna top 10. It's gonna.
It's
It's
5
making
million.
yeah, it's making me literally ones of dollars already. I'm well on my
Nice.
way to being 100 air. With that said, it's actually doing quite well. I'm getting Facebook posts like, "Oh, this looks great! I can't wait to get it." And then subsequently, I got it and I really enjoyed it. Can't ask for much better than that. But let me tell you the truth. It's been like 5 books since I've landed a book this hard. It's been like 5 books since I could honestly say it's open strong, it's selling well, people are liking it. And that has a lot to do with finally figuring out a match between what I know and what I'm interested in writing about, and where not the audience, but the market lies. Because you know my work, I wrote the comic toolbox a lifetime ago, and people keep finding their way back to it. Somebody wakes up and they say, I want to know more about comedy, and they buy Comic Toolbox and they start their comic journey with that. So I had the idea that if I applied my thinking to stand-up comedy, I could probably come up with a book that would work for the constantly refreshing market of people who are just getting into stand-up for the first time. Strictly speaking, it's not only for beginners, but if you are a beginner, it will do you a lot of good very fast.
Do you think this book is doing better too because there's no mentions of anal cysts in it? Do you think that's a factor?
That I made the conscious choice to leave that out of the text.
Good.
Also, when I was editing it, I trimmed a lot of anecdote. In the first draft, I tried to illustrate everything with something from my own experience, and then I found that tiresome. And I reminded myself, this book isn't really about me. My experience is instructive, but it's about the user, and I used the word user rather than reader because I fancy that people who are getting the most out of the book are doing the exercises that are in it, thinking about the issues it raises, and really attempting to think about their practice of stand-up comedy in a new light. And the feedback I'm getting is, yeah, they are. So,
speaking of
hip,
feedback,
hip, hooray,
we're actually
I'm
we're live on YouTube and TikTok. So occasionally I'll break in with like some exciting announcement from one of those two forums.
Like, I read your book.
No,
you
what I have
Vorhaus,
is somebody,
you magnificent bastard.
Somebody specifically asking me to say Lily loves Aiden Lopez, so that's apparently something that's necessary. And then on YouTube, we have the Happy Hour News team just stating the words Sid Vicious and Nancy Spungen, I guess to prove that they know history as well.
That makes sense.
Yeah, the Happy Hour News team is kind of like a brethren podcast based out of North Dakota, and essentially our only listeners. So at least you have two guys in North Dakota who are paying attention to you today.
Well, hey guys, I'll be on your podcast too. I'm kind of a podcast slut.
I don't think Lily really loves that guy, to be honest.
You don't think Lily actually loves Aiden Lopez?
No, I don't know. It seemed a little tepid.
Well,
I think it's code. I think it's an announcement that the nuclear war has begun.
I was thinking that
if you know the code, you know to dive under your desk now.
Maybe I just like somehow created like a Mexican mule taking place. Somebody's bringing heroin over the border.
I think that's the start of the QAnon revolution when somebody says that on the internet.
Oh, yeah.
That's only when you and I become lizard people.
Hey, speaking of QAnon revolution, I haven't heard anything about the truck convoy, the anti-mask convoy that left California when masks were still a thing and apparently is now founding around somewhere in the Midwest looking for purpose. Have you heard anything about that group?
I heard something briefly about it, I think yesterday, that there was a freedom convoy in the U.S., but I thought it was connected to the freedom convoy in Canada. I thought they were showing
but that
their
started
support.
out as anti-mask, anti-vax.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know anything more about it other than maybe they lost their maps, and or they had bad Wi-Fi in the middle of the country and didn't know where to go anymore.
Well, it doesn't really matter now. It doesn't matter anymore because COVID's over, right?
Is it? I hadn't heard it was over. What?
I heard the announcement.
I didn't get that announcement. I got the masks were coming down in a couple of weeks, but
heard it on the news.
Not that COVID was ending.
Yeah, it's done. It's done because
just like that.
Well, in the modern world, we just can't cope with too much information, obviously. So when Ukraine started to heat up, the powers that be, media that controls us all, said we're going to have to take COVID off the table. Okay, that story has gone as far as it can. If we try to dump Ukraine on top of it, people's heads will explode. So we're going to turn COVID down. We can bring it back into fall for sweeps if we need to.
Well, but they're not actually turning it down. If you saw that one video of Putin at the end of the really long conference table where he's by himself and he's got like 6 of his associates way at the end of this 50-foot table, all next to each other though, so that he's socially distanced, but they are not. So...
Was that a social distance COVID thing, or that was just Putin being an arrogant bastard?
Probably a combination of both, I think. Because I think he's trying not to get COVID too, because he's one of the few world leaders that has not gotten COVID. I know, like Boris Johnson has gotten it twice, and I think
I've never gotten it either.
Well, you are the leader of your own world. That's true, Greg.
Yes. Middle Earth.
But we're way off track. So we're talking about the little book of stand-up by John Vorhaus, who, if he were to live in Texas, he would be the best little Vorhaus.
There you go.
I had to bring that joke back.
Well, the first time I heard that joke, not that that joke. The first time somebody made a joke about my name, I was too young to know what they were driving at. You know, some older kid came up to me and said, "Hey kid, what's your last name?" I must have been 5 or 6. Vorhaus, whorehouse, ha ha ha, and ran away. I had no idea what a whorehouse was. Much later, when I found out what it was, I became very indignant. I decided I got to change my name. I can't walk around with a joke name all my life. So for a while, I changed it, Vordello.
Not Vormonger.
No.
When I made a cat house for my cat in shop class, and I had no idea there was a term cat house. So my shop teacher was always snickering every time I said I'm building a cat house for my project. Because dogs have dog houses.
Yes.
I figured my cat might like a little house.
Birds have bird houses. Why not a cat? Ferrets have ferret houses. Kiwis have kiwi houses.
It's self-evident that no self-respecting cat would come within a mile of your cat house. I'm gonna go in there because you tell me to. You don't know how cats work.
Well, but plus Greg doesn't hang out with self-respecting cats. He only goes out with self-hating cats.
Oh, so, okay. Well, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
It would be wrong for him to be anywhere near anything that is self-respecting.
Cats don't hate themselves. No cat. They all love themselves. They're all narcissist assholes.
Why, cats are narcissists?
They all are.
Okay.
They all are.
I'm curious how that is expressed in their speech patterns, Greg.
Well, they just don't give a shit.
It's
what else except themselves.
It's not the speech pattern. It's the tail standing straight up, exposing the asshole proudly for all the world to see. Cat walks through the world saying, "This is my asshole. You can love it."
I didn't realize that if you remove the tail, that would expose an asshole. Were there any tails that were near Trump when he was in office?
No, his hair.
Oh, that was the tail exposing.
That wagged the dog.
All right, so back to the Little Book of Stand-Up. Now, way back when we were talking to you before, the next month you were supposed to be performing, I believe it was at the Burbank Stand-Up Festival or something like that, for your very first time doing stand-up. How did that go?
Didn't. COVID took it away.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
I was waiting for this great bombing story to happen.
No, I have subsequently gone up. I've broken my cherry. I put in some reps. I can't say that I'm bombing, but I can't say that I'm killing. I've sort of had the feeling that my material is really sharp and on target, but my delivery it doesn't know what it is yet. And as a consequence, I either rush through the material or I swallow the jokes. I knew from the start that the jokes would be there, the material is there, but I'm still scaling up my performance. And it's something I talk about in the book. You know, what I'm trying to do is look at myself honestly and say, this is where I am, this is where I want to go, and these are the steps I need to take to close that gap. I'm not like, I'm hating on myself for failing. That's not part of how I'm going about this.
Right.
And
yeah, you can't do that if you're going to be in stand-up. I mean,
you can't do it if you're going to be.
Pretty much everybody bombs in stand-up. So
yeah, it will be brutal.
Yeah.
Also, stand-up is hard.
I was actually working on a routine. I figured out that I should actually perform less. In fact, probably the best thing I can do for my reputation is not perform at all, because right now it's completely pristine, but it's only going to get worse from here. So I aspire to be like the J.D. Salinger of stand-up comedy, you know, often heard of, never seen. Did you ever see Vorhaus perform? No, man, nobody did.
Didn't he die?
So I think
like
that's actually much. Yeah, he never performs.
You'll be like Eddie and the Cruisers.
But also, there's a certain amount of, like Eddie and the Cruisers. There's a certain amount of those who can't do teach that I have to own. So I decided to embrace that as well. That's my brand. Those who can't do teach. And then it makes sense to people. They can say, well, he's not pretending to be an expert based on a lifetime of doing stand-up comedy. I do have a lifetime of writing comedy and writing about comedy and teaching people how to write comedy. So I have some information authority, but I was careful not to say, you should listen to what I have to say because I'm such an awesome stand-up comic. If I wrote those words, I would expect to be thrown out of my own book.
Yeah, and I think that the approach you're taking is actually a really good one, because I read the first chapter because that's on your website. And
I sent you a copy, didn't I?
I don't believe I got it. a copy to the
Oh,
address
okay.
that
Well,
you
anyway,
probably did not send it to since you don't have my address. So,
no, I sent you a digital copy, didn't I? That's what I was to
oh,
have said.
actually,
Anyway,
I don't know if I got it.
let's
I should have
let's
looked
skip that.
at the.
That was an
Let's
oversight
pause.
on
but
my
I
part.
did. I
But
did read the first chapter.
first
And
chapter.
and I like the concept. I mean, here's the recap. And the first statement, Greg, should actually speak to you wholeheartedly. So the first statement from his recap is lowering expectations improves performance. And I think, Greg, that you have far too many high expectations of yourself. And that's why you're unwilling to do some work towards certain things. So if you lower those expectations, you'll be doing exceptional.
My expectations are so low. I can't imagine them getting lower. I expect to be
Okay,
homeless
well,
at this point in life. I'm doing great.
And there
my
you've also
expectations were
fallen
so
into
low.
the second step, which is that awareness is the one thing that fixes everything. So you're aware at least of your low expectations. So that should fix that issue. And then finally, a useful fiction is a fiction, but it's useful just the same. And I believe that's what this show is all about, actually, is but it's not really useful fictions we're giving. This is a lot of unuseful fictions that we have here.
Well, I make up a lot of fictions that are useless for this show.
Yes.
I make up stories to try to trick you and Brendan.
Yeah, well, the next time you give one, I'll make sure you get a nickel.
I was working with a useful fiction earlier today. I have a client in Mexico. I'm zooming into a writing room for a sitcom there. They're just getting started. They're fairly new writers, and a writer is today going from outline to script. That's her task. She's finally got the green light to take her outline to script. And there was a certain amount of discussion around, well, do you think I have what it takes to write a script? And I was giving her lots of approval, but at the same time, I was saying, I'm using this thing called useful fiction. I'm telling you, I have faith in you. I know you can do the job, but I'm also lying because I really don't know. But I do know that if you don't feel my faith, you're going to have a harder time doing the good job that I want you to do. So a useful fiction is, I don't know if I can do this, but I'm going to believe that I can do it and use the fact that I'm lying to myself and tricking myself into doing it to actually put myself in a place where I can do it. One more example, if I may.
Sure.
Have you ever sat down to write a script? It feels like you're looking up at a 1,000-foot cliff and all you can feel is the steepness and the impossibility of climbing that script. That's the way I feel. So I use a useful fiction at that moment. It's not about the 1,000 feet. It's about what I can see right here. My job today, the only thing that matters is finding a handhold and taking a step up. I know that's a lie. The 1,000-foot cliff is the only thing that matters. This is just bullshit, but it's bullshit that helps me do what I want to do, which is take that first step and then the next step and the one after that.
The last time I tried to write a
fiction
script was in college, and because it was in like part of a script writing class, and I realized that that was something I did not want to do ever again, because it wasn't necessarily the story so much as the stage directions and putting them in a proper format and having to follow those particular guidelines of like how things have to be presented to somebody whenever you put the script there. I don't want to do that. I just want to tell the little story. I don't want to say, I can't even remember what the scene names are anymore. What you're putting, like exterior shot, blah, blah. Or doing storyboards. I hated doing storyboards
flood
too.
line.
Yeah. So all of that, I was like, I would rather just say my ideas to somebody else, let them type it in, because I just didn't like the typing part. Because back then we were using at school, they didn't give us electric typewriters. We had old manual typewriters in the library. So it'd be like, if you made a mistake, you'd have to take out the strip of white, that not white out at the time.
Oh yeah. The little white squares, not even the liquid. They probably wouldn't let you have that in school because you'd sniff it and get high, of course.
Well, we used other things for that.
But yeah, the little white paper, white out, WITEOUT, and you have to stick it in between the ribbon and the paper, and then hit the key.
Yes,
through the ribbon and puts the oh man.
And then
you could show that.
And since there were manual typewriters, sometimes the keys were like not quite matching it, so you'd like white out part of the letter, but not all of the letter.
Yes.
So for all of you millennials who are looking,
you could You could
Who are watching on TikTok right now, this is very obscure information. we're
show
giving.
a millennial that product and give them 10 guesses and it wouldn't come close.
I wonder
Not
how
to mock the
many
young.
in our generation. I wonder how many great writers there could have been who just were like, "Fuck this typewriter shit in the whiteout. I just can't deal with it." Like they just gave up writing. Like if they
I'm
had a
sure
computer-
from my own experience, I was transformed by the word processor, by the computer.
Me too.
I mean, I type really well. I learned in high school because the typing class had all the girls and the shop class had all the boys. So I chose typing and learned a valuable life skill. But I hated typing all the reasons you discussed. That when I discovered the delete key, when I realized I could write something and if I didn't like it, I could just make it go away and try again. That was really liberating. That's when I
or taking
really
a
started.
paragraph and moving it, like saying, "Oh, this works."
Yeah.
Well, just
It's
not having
magic.
to use whiteout or any of those materials that you had to use to replace the mistakes that you made. Man, that would have like saved me so many bad grades that I got in high school and in college because I made mistakes all the. I mean, I was a relatively good typist. I took typewriting in high school. I took the first semester. I didn't take the second semester, but it had nothing to do with girls. It was just like I figured it was a tool that I needed to learn was typing. And it's actually been one of the greatest things that I ever learned was how to type from when I was.
So you guys don't know how to make a cat house though, because you never took a shop apparently.
We don't know how to make a cat house.
No,
'cause we
I
didn't
did
go to
take
shop.
shop, and I sucked at shop, and that's one of the reasons
I
why I
suck
didn't
at
take
shop.
shop again.
I was
Like,
the only one who
yeah.
failed.
I made
in the
some
whole class.
weird piggy bank thing, and I did it wrong. You know, and I would always hear the stories of people losing fingers in shop, and so I never trusted those damn.
Really.
I'm like, I'd rather
if
do
you think
something
of it-
that wouldn't involve an amputation. So
If you think about it on that level, the schools are completely irresponsible to let people like us anywhere near power tools and equipment. It's just
Bandsaws.
we could probably, if we lived in today times, we could probably sue them for negligence for letting us register for the class.
There was a girl though in my school who she strangled herself in the typewriter ribbon when she was trying to. So it
I don't
could be
believe
pretty
that.
dangerous.
That's a bar fact.
really, and
Typing
she tried to
classes.
get in her house with one of the typewriter keys, but it wouldn't fit.
Yeah, that's a useless fiction right there.
It's definitely useful.
Totally non-useful.
That's
fiction.
that was a nicely turned joke.
As
She
opposed to a
joked on
nicely turned.
hung
ankle,
herself on
which-
a typewriter ribbon. Yeah, it's funny.
Oh, so from YouTube,
I thought of
we
another
have from
useful fiction.
Sanchez El Dorado. I have a sliding expectation scale with a 0 base. So it sounds like he's got an issue for
He
low
has set
expectations
his
as well.
he set his expectations appropriately low.
He lives
Um,
a lower level life than even Greg does in terms of activity. He like babysits a 4-year-old.
My expectations are in hibernation. Hibernating expectations.
What do you mean? I have a job. You don't even have a job. Why am I lower than you?
I wasn't talking about me. I was talking about Sanchez El Dorado.
I know you said I have a lower. He has a lower thing than
Well,
Greg.
that guy rules the world.
So wait, I want to hear this other useful fiction you were about to bring out.
When I first moved to LA and I needed a job, I took a job as a temp for a very short period of time. And this was just as computers and word processing were coming along. And I walked into one of my temp assignments and they asked me if I knew Word Perfect. Up until that instant, I had never heard the words Word Perfect, but I am such a liar and so confident in my ability to get away with shit. I said exactly the following. I said, I'm a little rusty on it. Just give me the manual and let me brush up. And they gave me the manual and I fudged my way through it. But that's the case of a useful fiction that is exactly and specifically a lie. And I really think that people will make a much more robust experience of their lives if they give themselves permission to lie to get certain things that they want, especially when the things that they want have to do with permissions that other people might give them. Like if I say I don't know Word Perfect, they're not going to give me permission to mess around with their computers. But for the sake of my growth, I want to learn Word Perfect. I need to get past the fact that they're not going to let you do the thing you don't know how to do. And so I'm very accustomed to saying I know how to do things that I don't know how to do. And I commend it. It's a great life strategy. You get a lot of
That
good
was
stuff.
one of the
comes
pieces
your
of
way.
advice my dad gave. He was like, when you go to job interviews, just tell them you can do what they ask you to do. Because
Yeah.
and then when you get the job, it goes, learn it really, really fast. So, you know,
That's how I learned to walk on stilts. I don't know if I told you this story last time. It's another big lie. I was living in Boston. I could earn $30 an hour as Santa Claus on stilts, and that was big money, and I wanted it, and I went after it. I called the guy up. This was on a Friday. I said, I hear you need a stilt walker. He said, do you know how to walk on stilts? I didn't lie. I said, when do you need me to start? He said, Monday. I said, I'll be there. And I had the whole weekend to wrangle me some stilts and learn how to use them. Showed up for work on Monday. That's what that's connected to, is this thing called don't fear bad outcomes. You might not give yourself permission to do that wacky thing because you fear it'll go wrong or go bad. You won't pull it off. You won't get away with it. You know, the fraud police will catch up to you, this kind of thing. My attitude is don't think about the outcome at all. If there's something in there that's fun for me or good for me or money for me or learning for me, I'm going to step into it as hard as I can and not worry about the consequences. And I think that is also a healthy way to get past those fear barriers that are so consistent in our lives in creative practice.
I think
What's
there are certain bad outcomes you should fear, though, like things that could involve amputation and
yes,
death.
true.
And strangulation.
But if you're talking about
Yes.
going up on a tough stage, if you're talking about asking for a feature spot, if you're talking about engaging a hostile audience as a stand-up comic, those aren't life-threatening outcomes. They're bad in your mind because you know they're going to cost you emotionally.
Oh, I
That
forgot
part
we were
you
talking
need to
about
look
stand-up
past.
comedy. I was totally like,
Yeah, I know. It's got to go a
we're
long
talking
way
about
around and come
typewriting
back
for
to
so
that.
long.
And also, you don't have to. They don't even have to hurt you emotionally if your brains. And like I played in like bad bands most of my life, and for me it was just fun. And so like I could play a show, people might even be booing and just being like, "You guys suck." It wouldn't hurt me emotionally. I'd be like, "Well, they don't like my music. I don't care." And I'm having a great time though because I like playing my music. And if you enjoy stand up, even if it's a bomb show, you know you're learning. And if your brain's in the right mind frame, you could just be like, well, it doesn't hurt.
Wait, how can you get your brain in a mind frame? Wouldn't you get
I
your
don't
mind
know.
in a brain
That was a
frame?
mangled.
I
A
try to
frame and
get
a
my
brain
mind
mind?
into a brain frame. That's where I go.
Yeah,
Because
I knew that was a mangled metaphor as soon as it came out of my mouth. I was like,
yeah,
I mean, if
but
you
it's
want, I could put
fine.
us all in frames
Look,
again.
There's no bad outcomes. It's a perfectly mangled metaphor.
Here,
Oh,
now
here we
you're
are
in
again.
a-
Now
There's
I
my
can do
mind
that joke.
frame.
Now I can do that joke I was going to go for last time. Okay, here's this imaginary ball that I know how to throw because also I'm a mime, professional mime from way back. And I'm going to toss it to you, Matt, and you got to be ready to catch it. Okay.
Okay.
There you go. Ooh. There you go, and
Up
you
the
can
other
toss
way.
it on.
I threw it
Oh.
onto Greg.
There you go, and you toss
a
it
while.
back to me.
I ate it. Sorry.
Okay, that's fine. That got us out of the game. That's all. I just wanted to. I
So
know
think-
it feels
so
like
Greg,
it
when my
feels like
finger
we-
goes across this way, you should put your finger through the frame
Huh?
as well. There we go.
There you go. That's
Oh
the
my
look.
God, we're children. Okay.
We are. And for those of you listening to the podcast, good fucking luck.
That's right. You need to just go to YouTube and you'll understand. This of course, we do air this on YouTube the next day. So everybody can, all of the people who are on TikTok right now who are wondering what the hell's going on, since they can only see me talking, and the two guys on who from North Dakota are watching on YouTube right now, they normally would watch it on YouTube, but they won't now because they're watching it live now. So we'll have no viewers whenever I finally air it. But if anybody does hear this and wants to see it, this will be on qsblaw.org, and you can check it out there. This is a really good moment to bring us in, since we're basically at the middle of the show. This is time for our cooking segment. So we're going to get right into our cooking segment. If you want to stick around, John, we'd love to have you, because otherwise it'll just be me and Greg talking about this. So you have your choices if you want to.
Well, you completely taken me by surprise. Now I don't know where the flow is. Are you inviting me to leave, or is it something you want to pass through en route to?
We would love to have you stick around, because we're still going to be talking about our client after we come back from this little break, because we have two little segments. We have our cooking segment and we have our Ask Greg segment where we ask Greg legal questions and he will respond to those. So if you think of a legal question while we're doing through the cooking segment.
Food is for eating, food is for eating, food is for eating with Waspy Soda Pop.
Hey there, everybody. This is Waspy Soda Pop. I got a new edition of Food is for Eating today. We got German Shepherd's Pie. Here are the ingredients. 1 teaspoon of salt, plus more to taste. 3 large potatoes, peeled and quartered. 8 tablespoons or stick of butter, divided. 1 medium onion, chopped. 1.5 pounds of ground Putina dog chow, German Shepherd chow, whatever you feed your German Shepherd. Half a cup of beef broth. 1 teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce, pepper, and any other seasonings of choice that you may have. So here's how you cook it. Place the peeled and quartered potatoes in a medium-sized pot. Cover with at least an inch of cold water, add a teaspoon of salt, bring to a boil, reduce to a simmer, cook until tender. While the potatoes are cooking, melt the 4 tablespoons of butter in a large pan on medium heat, add the chopped onions, cook till tender, about 6-10 minutes. Then you add the ground German Shepherd chow to the pan with the onions and vegetables. You cook until no longer pink, drain the pan of fat, and season with salt and pepper. Add the Worcestershire sauce and beef broth. Bring the broth to a simmer and reduce heat to low. Cook uncovered for 10 minutes. Add some more beef broth if necessary. Keep the meat from drying out. Or you can soak the kibble in water, and whatever broth you get from that, you can pour that in too. That kind of works as well. Taste the cooked filling, and if you need, add more salt, more pepper, Worcestershire, or other seasonings of your choice. The potatoes are done cooking. Remove them from the pot. Place them in a bowl with the remaining 4 tablespoons of butter and mash them. Mash those potatoes. Spread the cooked filling in an even layer in a large baking dish like a 9 and 13-inch casserole. Spread the mashed potatoes over the top of the ground dog chow. Rough up the surface of the mashed potatoes with a fork so there are peaks that will get well browned. Rough them up. Place in a 400-degree oven, which you should have preheated before, and cook until brown and bubbling, about 30 minutes. That's it! That's it! That's German Shepherd's Pie. This is Waspy Soda Pop. Food is for eating.
That was great.
So this is the first time you ever did food for a dog, for a pet.
Well, no, it wasn't food for a pet. It was for people.
It's for the dog to eat. That's why you put it in the dog chow.
No,
it's
it's an inflation buster.
That's the ingredient. Yeah, it's for what people will be eating in Ukraine.
Yeah. Well, it's
so that things aren't as expensive. It'll be hard to find corn
somewhere. Or, in the nanny state, dog food has to be fit for human consumption or they'd never let you sell it. So I might as well go ahead and eat it.
Do you guys remember in the Road Warrior? That's like the most prized thing meal.
Oh, yeah.
Got a can of dog meat, like wet dog food. That's just like, oh, so good.
Can of wet dog food?
Yeah, as opposed to dry kibble.
Did you ever get hungry when you saw the gravy train commercials on television as a kid?
It makes its own gravy. It looks so good.
It's okay if you got hungry, as long as you didn't get sexually aroused.
Or both.
Both.
I got sexually aroused in the Bain de Soleil suntan.
Oh, yeah. Well, there was an episode of our show where you sang that.
I could sing.
That woman was so hot. She was so sexy.
Now tell the truth. How do you feel about the copper tone girl?
That little girl with the dog pulling down her.
The little girl with the dog pulling down her.
It always seems slightly disturbing.
Yeah. Well, due to my trial, I can't talk about that.
I loved the restraining order. That's another example of times gone by. A meme, we could call it a meme. It wasn't known as that at the time. That would not gain any traction in today's public discourse. But at the time, it was like, it's fine. It's no big deal.
Well, I didn't like that Morton salt girl. She was always wasting salt. I didn't like that. Pouring it in the ground.
It rains.
Well, that was because she had just gotten through invading lands and was preventing them from growing their crops.
Oh, like the Scythians.
Exactly.
The Carthaginians, I mean.
Right. It all stems back to the Carthaginians with the Morton Salt girl.
That was a Roman emperor, that little girl.
They will never come back to invade me. I shall cause them starvation and famine.
Salt their fields.
All right, well, we need to now move on to the next segment. Again, this is a quick one, so let's get this sucker going as well.
He has an opinion, may not always be right. He's a real fake lawyer, he's old and he's white. Ask him a question, 'cause he's a good egg. For bogus advice, ask Greg. Ask Greg? Ask Greg!
Never get tired of that.
That's great. That's
Okay.
a classic right there. I want to
Well,
put that in my rotation, my
You
playlist.
You should. All on ukulele. Did you happen to think of a legal question to ask Greg, John, in the meantime?
Yeah, I've been in a dispute for the last 4 months trying to get paid by a game show. I was on a game show. I won $1,000, and they're stiffing me. And I am trying to figure out how I can keep coming back to them and saying, I'm not going away. You have to pay me. At what point do I threaten legal action, and what point do I take legal action, and what form should that action take, or should I just walk away from $1,000 and call it a lesson in bad judgment?
I can't wait for this answer.
Well, the legal action might cost you more than the $1,000 paying for lawyers. So what I would do is a different kind of legal action. Let's call it a useful fiction, if you will. Just say that the host fondled you in the green room, and you're going to sue for a lot more than $1,000. You sue for $1 million, and they'll pay you the
That's a
$1,000
genius
just to
idea.
go away.
Just to go away. That is a genius idea. I think I might lob that in as a grenade just to say, I'm not doing this now, but wouldn't it be hilarious if I did? Because I'm trying not to
making
escalate
some
it.
unnatural comments about my bald head.
Yes, exactly. He was insisted on rubbing my head, touching me inappropriately. They all do it. They do it for luck.
Where's my money?
But still,
say they're doing
this
it
is
for
my
luck.
space. These are my boundaries.
Yeah.
Okay, and one final question for Greg, for Ask Greg. Dear Greg, if I'm invading Ukraine, what legal standing do I have on the international level to ensure that I can take it completely over?
Well, I actually worked at The Hague for a while, and I was the chief barrister there. And well,
I have no reason to doubt you, sir.
there is no legal standing, but might makes right when it comes to invading a country. And so I think if I was Vladimir Putin, just like all the Republicans are saying, like, go ahead, look at the strong man. He's kicking ass. Go ahead, invade the country and see where the chips fall. Chances are the rest of the countries will be too scared to fuck with you because you've got the second biggest nuclear arsenal after us. And then everyone will just have to eat it.
So this is your educated international legal opinion based on your time at The Hague?
Legal. It's paralegal.
What it sounds like it boils down to is do what you want. Don't worry about the law.
Yeah, because The Hague probably will cluck its tongue at Putin. Everyone will say, "Oh, we don't like this," but what are they going to do? Start World War III over this? They'll probably let them have it. Just like when they invaded Afghanistan. I mean, sure. I mean, they failed, but it's not like the world was just like, let's all attack Russia.
I think, the world was a lot less attentive to that.
After Afghanistan, they never sent a little girl over there to pour salt all over Russia.
Well, thank you very much, Greg. That is Ask Greg. And again, I want to thank our guests very much for being willing to sit through that as we get to the meat of the show now, which is
and for contributing.
We discuss our client. And our client for today is, I can see clearly now, Ukraine is gone, or don't Ukraine on my parade. And that's basically, of course, talking about the current issues right now where Vladimir Putin has decided that now is the time to go right into Ukraine and to not really sure what his purpose is. I think it's to take over Ukraine and make it part of Russia again.
Its purpose.
And historically, he has a reason, like he's giving to international people as to why he's invading. Right.
He made a big lie already. He said that they were attacking Russian people in the Ukraine.
And they're Nazis and homophones.
They're homophones. They sound just like other people do.
They sound like other.
They sounded like other people. They must be removed from power.
Well, there's supposed to be like
Perhaps
two cities in eastern Ukraine that are pro-Russia, and he's essentially going in to try and take those back, like they annexed Crimea back in 2014. Theoretically, that's the reason. And then there's also the concept that supposedly there are some very strong neo-Nazi factions in Ukraine, which supposedly are true, and that they're somehow within the Ukrainian government. And that's one of the other reasons he's using, because the fact is Russia is very much anti-Nazi, but whether or not that's really true that the neo-Nazis have infiltrated the Ukrainian government, I'm not sure about that. Considering the president of Ukraine is Jewish, and his parents were like World War II survivors. So.
This comes back to our theme of useful fiction. Calling them Nazis is about as useful a fiction as you're going to find. Nobody's going to push back against. We should make room in the world for Nazis. And people will believe it or not believe it according to their understanding. But I don't think it matters much to Putin whether they believe it or don't believe it, because he runs the country. Then they're going to do what he says, as protests have demonstrated.
Now, when you were in Russia, was Putin in power then?
He had just come into power, and it looked like bright days. But it was also clear the way Russia was working was grift, corruption, payoffs, paybacks. The whole economy is really inefficient because it has a lot of corruption and unnecessary paying out to people built into it. So the one-liner I used at the time, I tried not to tell this joke because it is so anti-Russian, but that's back in fashion again. But my experience of the Russians led me to say, not to generalize, but fucking Russians. It's just.
Is that a joke or more of an exasperation?
It's a little bit of both in terms of the writers that I was working with. But from a political point of view, I asked a Russian colleague of mine what the chances were for democracy in Russia. And he said, the thing you need to understand is that in 800 years, we haven't had 5 minutes of democracy. And I think that goes a long way toward explaining why Russia is the way it is and why Ukraine and some other countries around there are like that, because they just don't have any experience of democracy. The only method that has ever most popular, sustaining, coming back over and over again is big man stuff. First the Tsar, then the Communist Party leaders, premier, whatever, now just bald-faced big man, the guy who can do what a big man must do, which is say to the people around him, those oligarchs, here's my plan, guys. I'm going to be the big man. I'm going to run everything. And if you and you and you and all of you agree to support me in that, I will give you all the payoffs I can. And so the deal is you support me for big man and I make it pay for you at the expense of everybody else. And that way of organizing political power, national power, even down to tribal power, that is the one thing that works better than everything and has done since the dawn of time.
I would have understood that better if you had used like a bad Russian accent when you were pretending to be Putin, and then it wouldn't have all combined. I think it's like big man say.
Big problem.
Big man.
Big man.
Could you say,
I am big man.
would that form of government be called the kleptocracy?
Yes, because it functions by funneling energy, people's labor and resources from a large population of poor people up to the top of the pyramid. You could even think of it as a pyramid.
There's no ideology, right? It seems like the ideology doesn't even matter. There's no ideology. It's just these oligarchs want to stay filthy rich and get even richer. They don't give a shit.
Well, suppose your point of view. Suppose your point of view is I'm better than other people, and anything that I can do to make me thrive is better for everybody because I'm just better.
Did you like read something I wrote recently?
I was talking about me though, not you.
What'd you say, Greg?
I said he lived in Russia. That's how he knows this stuff.
Yeah.
Well, you know, there is some historical precedent in terms of Putin, which Putin could potentially use to say, here's why I'm bringing Ukraine back into the fold. There was a long period of time when Ukraine was called Little Russia. And I also was reading about why it's no longer called the Ukraine, because the translation for Ukraine is the borderlands. So for the longest time, it's kind of like the Netherlands that translates to the Netherlands.
No, that,
Yeah,
and
Wikipedia. I read that on Wikipedia too, Matt.
Did you? Well, I was digging.
oh, I could have done that. Why didn't I
Yes.
think of Wikipedia?
Well, you
I
didn't know
could
we were
learn
talking
so
about this
much.
today. You
True,
didn't
but
know-
I might still be interested.
Yeah, well, either
Me.
way, there's still a lot of
Either
information there if you want to get into it.
So they think it's better if you just call them Borderland instead of the Borderlands.
The borderland. I can see that.
We're
I can
Well,
see
they're
Borderland.
just going to
I-
Ukraine,
you know, but
as opposed to
hey,
the
don't
England.
call me Whorehouse, okay? It's not my name. Call me my name.
Instead
Oh,
of
and then
Vorhaus.
The
Kiev,
whorehouse?
Kiev, the whorehouse, right? Kiev versus Kiev. It's Kiev. Don't say Kiev. You'll piss me off. It's Kiev. Kiev. That's how we say it here. That's
Well,
what
you
I
know,
can
the thing
imagine.
that doesn't make
someone-
sense, if we're talking about like cities that are mispronounced by Americans or English speakers, Munich is one of the biggest ones, which I've never understood why we pronounce it the way that we do when it's actually pronounced München. Like
That's
the-
why, because we can't pronounce München. We're not
you
German
just did.
speakers.
I just did.
München. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You were in the neighborhood of München.
But
You were
Munich
not-
is
you were in
nowhere
the-
near that,
You were in the
though.
suburb.
Munchin?
We could have said München if we wanted to, but we're going Munich.
Munich. Well, but then Germany is called Deutschland
Yes.
in German.
Exactly.
That is
Japan.
German land.
And,
And we
why is
don't
it so
call
hard
it
for
that.
anybody else to say Deutschland, you know? Why can't we do that?
Isn't Nippon?
Why
just-
can't we do that?
is
Why don't
Japan?
we do that?
Yeah, exactly.
that?
Why don't
Isn't
No,
Nippon just as
Nippon.
hard? It's just as hard to pronounce as Japan to some guy in 17.
Yeah, well,
Sure.
but that's all because English is a messed up language. It's a bastard child with a dozen parents, like QP, quintuple penetration.
But I think
And
every
you know, it's
does that though. Every country does that. Like Spain calls Germany Allemand. That's not what Germans call themselves. Why doesn't I always thought it was weird that why don't we just call a country by what they call themselves? So I mean, I guess
why don't we use meters? Why are we still using feet, inches, and miles?
that's a better question. Yes.
It reminds me of a Seinfeld joke. He had a great line about the chopsticks. He says, "Why are the Chinese still using chopsticks? Have they not seen the fork?"
Yes.
Just I like that
As
joke.
opposed to
But-
playing Operation with their food.
with there you go.
I will pick up this bone or I will get a shock from my plate.
Did you know that they made a version of Big Bang Theory in Belarus, talking about what you can do if you decide law doesn't matter? They
Well, did you get
the-
sent over there to consult with them? Because you did Married with
I
Children in
know,
Russia.
I
Why
just-
not
I-
Big Bang Theory in Belarus?
Why not? Why not the Big Bang? Because they didn't need me. Because here's what they were doing: they were taking the shows off the air, you know, viewing the shows, taping
Uh-huh.
them, transcribing the scripts, translating the scripts into Belarusian, giving them to actors, and shooting them on sets. So they basically just took the intellectual property and called it the Theorists and put it on the air. And Chuck Lorre, who created the show, I once heard him talking about his thoughts around like trying to sue them. And he realized the problem with suing them was they put it on the air of the national broadcaster. So suing them would involve going to national courts to fight against the national broadcaster. It just was never going to work.
Especially since Belarus is run by a dictator. And
Yeah,
would
well, there's
probably
that too. At the
require
time, that
to
might
be
not have been
done.
the case. But
Well,
it,
he's
but it
been
was
dictator
just
for a while.
intellectual
What's
property
his name?
rights. What are those?
Lukashenko, that's his name.
Does Russia, at least on paper back then or now, have that copyright agreement like we have with all the other countries? Because some countries don't, like Turkey can just make their own Star Wars like they did, or make their own First Blood. Did Russia have that on paper technically? That you
I don't know about that, but I do know that there is a circulating bootleg translation of the comic toolbox in Russian.
Oh,
that
Wow.
Somebody just translated it and it
One of those
circulated on
Russian writers you
bulletin
hired.
boards. Yeah. Oh well, this will be useful. I don't know anything more about it than that, like whether it made anybody any money. But I'm not worried about that because we're so precious about our ideas. Ideas are cheap. What's important is getting your voice out there, according to me, is what I want to do. So if somebody in Russia is using a pirated version of the comic toolbox in Russian to make some progress, I'm kind of okay with that. They'll say, this guy seems to know what he's talking about. Maybe I'll visit his website and buy a book. And then that I expand my brand and I don't lose any sleep over somebody's ripping me off somewhere in the world.
And they'll fly you over to be part of the first wave of the
And
invasion of Ukraine.
They'll fly me over to, I wonder if those days will ever come back again. You know, until the pandemic, I was in Europe for 6 weeks every summer, teaching all over the place, really interesting stuff, conferences, great gigs, television production companies, and it all went away from the pandemic. And even looking into this summer, there's not enough security in COVID world for me to think about booking myself a trip, you know, maybe next summer, but maybe never.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing we need to think about. We're at the mercy of these events, and what we can't control is the events, but what we can always control is our relationship with those events inside our own heads. I was writing about this today in a slightly different context. If you view your struggle as a struggle, then you're giving yourself a negative position. You're not giving yourself an advantage. If you view your struggle as an experience, you're already in a more neutral emotional space. And then the idea of I'm struggling and therefore I feel bad goes away. And you can focus on, I'm in this experience and I want to make the best of it. How do I go about doing that?
So would Hitler have been happier
that's
if
why,
he named the book My Experience instead of My Struggle?
My Experience, yes. I think he would have been happier if he'd sold a damn painting or two. Think about that, man.
Or if he got laid.
If only I got laid. Yeah.
He would have been. There would have been no World War II if he could have gotten laid better.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Oh, that reminds me of.
There was Ava Braun. She must have
have
done something with her.
I don't know. I think he was dysfunctional, but she just liked the power and being like his.
I think he was missing a testicle or something.
Yeah.
Oh, by the
That
way,
was
Sanchez Eldorado said that he bombed a Holocaust memorial. I'm assuming he's talking about Putin as opposed to John, because I don't think John.
Or as opposed to
Holocaust
himself.
memorial.
That's the way I interpret it. I thought he was saying I bombed. He
said the word he, but I didn't know who he was referring to. He meant Putin or you.
I have
the nature of
bombed
your
a
background.
Holocaust memorial.
You mean as a stand-up comedian, he had a gig at a Holocaust memorial and he bombed it?
Oh my God, wouldn't that be a gig? Just as a concept, as a sketch, a guy doing a stand-up gig at a memorial, at a Holocaust memorial. Very funny.
And you could get Gilbert Gottfried to play the role. Gilbert Gottfried has to be in that.
Oh no!
Why are they so skinny? So,
ouch! Too soon. Too soon.
Yeah, I'm
right, that
comfortable
joke should
with
be
the
told
concept on the
never
level of
again.
concept.
All right. So as we continue on with the client for today, which is, I can see clearly now Ukraine is gone. Now, the idea is hopefully that Ukraine will not be gone at the end of all this, but with 40 miles of convoy sitting outside of Ukraine, it's not looking really good for the future of Ukraine, especially since Putin is unwilling to truly sit down and have ceasefire talks, although the president of Ukraine is willing to. It's like it's confusing to me about the ceasefire talks that the president of Ukraine wants to do, because I'm wondering what are Putin's actual demands that would cause him to stop invading, other than
Never join NATO. Promise to never join NATO.
Yeah.
Well, I know that was a part of it. You know, I think maybe it's because the former Soviet Union was like being whittled away with other former member countries joining NATO, like Estonia and Latvia and Lithuania. They're all part of NATO now.
Well, I think we're forgetting the main reason why countries really go to war. I learned this on Wikipedia.
Grapes?
Ukraine is the breadbasket.
You said the Ukraine, Greg.
Oh God, I'm sorry. Oh, cancel me.
Correct yourself. Say Ukraine.
The border,
some Ukraine somewhere.
In the borderlands there, they like, even though they're, it's not that rich because it's inefficiently run, but it's the land there is so fertile. So that's why he wants it. Sure, he's going to say any kind of crazy thing. Don't join NATO.
Oh, so you think
Just
it's
like
land?
Just like when we invaded Iraq, we said all these reasons why.
Grenada.
We wanted the fucking oil. It's just like,
But we never got the oil from Iraq.
Yeah, because we fucked up. Because
well, that doesn't make sense then. We could have gotten the oil if we wanted.
Well,
no, we couldn't.
No, but there. Yeah, but that's good to reflect on. We tried to do it and we failed. We did a crap job of it. Didn't make sense. Bad decision. We can draw hope from that. That might be what's happening to Putin right now. That he's just doing a bad job of executing on his goals, and that's what's going to save us.
Well,
But
I
I
think
have a
that he's
question
getting
for
a lot
you.
of it. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Why do you suppose that 40-mile convoy that's just sitting there has not been attacked
Well, I mean, by Ukrainian forces?
by Ukrainian forces? Yeah.
Because it's probably on Belarus's territory, and they don't want to violate those borders because then they would be at war with Belarus.
Oh, okay. I thought it was within Ukraine. Oh, that makes much more sense.
Also,
I was thinking
Belarus
that
is kind of on Russia's side in this.
Oh, absolutely, they are.
yeah, it's not kind of.
Yeah.
They're in their pocket.
Yeah.
They're allies. Like the allies to Russia are China, North Korea, Belarus, Kazakhstan, and like one or two others that I'm not thinking of at the moment, and that are willing to be considered an alliance. The problem Ukraine has is that they don't have an alliance with the United States. They don't have an alliance with NATO. They want that. They're trying to join the European Union as we speak, which should be, I don't know if that's going to be able to, that's going to happen in the middle of this. And Putin has already threatened nuclear war if anybody helps Ukraine out in that manner. So it's a very weird time right now. And I guess he picked the time of COVID to do it to make things more interesting.
Are there any UN forces there now? What's the UN doing about this?
No.
The UN just merely
That's one
walked
of the
out on a
ideas.
speech from the Russian minister is what they did.
That'll
Germany
show 'em.
has sent a huge amount of weapons to Ukraine. And there was like one or two other countries that have sent a lot of weapons to Ukraine as well to help them out. And they've been holding their own pretty well, but their cities are just getting bombarded. It's just so weird. This is kind of like World War II in the sense that no one expected in that enlightened time that there would be that kind of war happening. And then again, you would think that in our quote unquote enlightened time, this kind of war would not be happening, especially considering how things are. But I guess you can say that historically, certain countries are behind the times morally, and they're just now catching up. That's why they've had so many, like thousands of people arrested in Russia for protesting. They're kind of having their Vietnam now, I think, is what's going on. In other words, like the people of Russia are getting very irate about the fact that Putin is doing.
So is there like a Russian Wavy Gravy right now running around?
Possibly.
Pulling pranks, the merry pranksters of Russia.
There's a Russian Grateful Dead touring saying, "Don't take the bad acid."
They've always had a subculture, but it's hard to maintain when there's so much pressure on it. There's a movie called Stilyagi, Stilyagi. It means
It's a good appetizer.
buddies, anyway, it's about fans of swing music in the 1950s, and they had a jazz subculture that they tried to make happen in the face of drabness and repression. Good movie. Check it out. It's in Russian.
Is it in Russian? Do we
songs.
have to read subtitles or something?
You do have to read subtitles.
Oh, how dare you? How dare you?
Matt, I won't do
I
that.
know.
So I want to read a book.
I know.
I'll read a book.
Which you
Crying
never
out loud.
do.
Fair enough.
I look at books. I
You look at the pretty pictures.
I look at the spines of the books as I walk by them. And I
And
go,
you
what is
glean
that archaic device?
By osmosis, you glean the information from them.
No, I don't even get that close.
Here's a fun fact. Do you know that Alexander the Great, he was illiterate, even though he loved learning and would give all the scholars of Macedonia, he would be like, he loved them. Like, come on, keep learning, guys, even though I can't read. And he just didn't have time to learn how to read because he was conquering the world. But every night he would sleep with a book under his pillow, hoping that it would filter into his brain. It's such a sad little image. The guy who conquered the world, but he just couldn't read. And he was hoping that osmosis would make the words from the book.
How do you know this is true, Greg?
Because
it's right here in front of my eyes.
I'm a lot older than I look.
You were there? You were holding the book for Alexander the Great? You were putting it under his pillow?
I was Greg the not so great, his footman.
Greg, in a previous life, I was Greg the pretty good, adequate, get by. Greg the meh. That's what I was. There you go.
The meh.
Greg the meh.
Greg the third of
meh.
Midland. I was the fair to Midland Greg.
It was
Oh,
Greg
Greg
the
the Fair to
Bottom
Midland. That's
Sycophant.
I think that would be more like a royal title, like the Duke of Fair to Midland. I
Like an English
I own
county.
all this. I own all this land from Fair to Midland.
I think I've been there.
Oh, have you been to Highfalutin?
That's next county over.
It's
That's
next
where,
town
that's
over.
where
You
the
have to go
Tulip
through
Festival
Falutin.
is.
Yeah, to go through Falutin to get there.
That's right. So you have to go to Falutin to get to the Tulip Festival. To get
Tulips
to
in
to
England.
They're Faloops. What?
No, we're talking about
What?
England.
I don't know what we're talking
England, a
about.
big
Yeah, we were
tulip.
talking about Fair to Midland, the
The Duke of
rich,
Fair to Midland,
fertile
that's what it was.
borderland of Fair to Midland
By the Earl of Highfalutin.
by the Earl. Oh, the Earl of Highfalutin. I like that, or the High Earl of Falutin.
I want to
So that
make a
would be
whole
more like-
Game of Thrones show just with silly names like this. It would be great. If
I
Game of Thrones was like that.
I had an idea for a detective novel where each and every one of the characters was a Victorian novel where all the characters were different names of apples. Granny Smith and
Macintosh.
Pippin, Macintosh the butler, Pippin the
Kayla.
little girl. The larger than life, the drama queen. I'm Gayla.
What do you think
wait.
the
Something
appropriate
funny.
amount of ridicule could be to cause Putin to finally get really pissed off and stop doing what he's doing? Like, what
No, I
would be
don't-
the
ridicule's
name that
not
he could
gonna
be called? Like, girly
Oh,
man?
Pooty.
Pooty
Pooty.
Pooty poot
It
poot?
would piss
Pooty
me
poot
off if I were Vladimir Putin. How about ironically, Bad Vlad?
Actually, I've seen that.
sure.
That was
You-
actually done on The Daily Show. I think they called him
well,
Vlad
that
the
must be where I
Bad.
stole it. Oh, Vlad the Bad.
Yeah.
I like Pooty Poot. Let's go with that.
You go Batty
Pooty
Vladdy
Poot.
or Vladdy the
Hashtag.
Batty.
Oh, you know what would really get him is to make it a hashtag. Hashtag Pooty Poot. Like when he's reading his Twitter, that's going to make him really mad.
I think Pooty Poot
Because it
should
feminizes him.
elongate
It really
more.
demasculines him, and he hates that because he's a homophone.
And yes, right, and a homonym at the same time. I think that whenever you get the picture of him bare chested on his horse, it should be underscored with Pooty Poot Poot under it. Rides his
Pooty Poot
horsey. Pooty Poot Poot rides his horsey
Pooty Poot.
today.
That's funny.
That's a meme. I think I'm going to create after I get off the show today.
All right.
All right. John Vorhaus, you can find his book, The Little Book of Stand-Up, at his website, johnvorhaus.com. That's JOHNVORHAUS, just like it sounds, .com, spelled C-O-M. In case you don't know, do not spell out the word dot, everybody. If you do that, you're certainly in the wrong show for you. John, is there anything else you'd like to tell us? Anything else you've got coming out in the near future or that you're working on?
No, I just want to mention that you can also find that book on Amazon. It's a little easier to find it there. You get it through my website. I sign it and send it to you, or you do a digital download. But if you get it through Amazon, then you get to participate in the global corporate takeover of the world. So that's a plus too.
When you sign your signature on something, and I've always wondered this about people who are like ask for autographs, what's the biggest you've ever signed your autograph, like deliberately? And why don't you do it like that way all the time?
All the time. I oversigned an artwork recently. I also do art, and my signature is JV22. And sometimes I can get really robust with it. And I did one, and I said, "Oh, that's out of control. That's just way too much. I'm making it all about me, and why would I want to make it all about me?" Fortunately, it was digital, so I just shrunk it down. I feel self-conscious signing the book. It's part of it, and I think a lot of authors do. I'm glad you like it enough to want my signature on it, but the fraud police, I still haven't earned it. I don't know what I would have to do in this life to feel like I'm worthy of your finding value in my signature. So when I go to sign it, I'm either insecure or humble, depending on how you want to look at it.
But if your name's on it already, all you're doing is just adding your name in cursive.
I know. I'm fucked up. What can I tell you? But this is
All right.
I feel this is what makes my writing so effectively, because I'm so deeply in touch with how fucked up I am.
I think
And
that
it
should be
can-
the title of your next book. I'm fucked up.
Yes. I'm fucked up, but I know why. Let's talk about that. Awareness, acceptance, change. That's the magic ticket right there. If you have awareness, you know what you're doing. If you have good stuff's happening, no matter what.
Thank you very much.
So,
Greg, you
there.
said you had
done
a
and
question.
dusted. Somebody.
Well, it was more of a suggestion. I just can't get my mind off these Apple people in Victorian England.
Apple people?
So
I'm sorry, I missed that.
I just can't. Like, we're talking about the Ukraine, but all I can think of is the Apple named people from your book. So I just was wondering, was the madam at the bordello with red hair, was she named Red Delicious?
It was Vordello.
Oh, that's good. Or Pink Lady.
There you go. And wait, I have to do one more thing.
No, she was Granny Smith, Greg.
Yeah, there you go. She's Granny Smith.
Now
we have a winner.
I wanted to do one more thing before we leave.
Do it. Do it.
Matt had many good ideas for our client today, and I don't want them to die. Have you ever seen Ukraine singing in Ukraine? It's Ukrainian again. Fire in Ukraine. And Ukraine drops keep falling on my head.
That's good. Did you say earlier blue eyes crying in Ukraine?
No, it did not. That's a good one, though. I wish I had thought
that's
of that
my
one.
contribution.
That'd be
Blue
a
eyes crying in
perfect
Ukraine.
one. We may just change the client to that.
What about Insane in the Ukraine?
Oh, I like that one too. I like that one.
I never even thought about using brain to be replaced by Ukraine.
Yeah.
That's got a whole different line of song titles that we could have gone with there. Anyway, so John, is there anything else you'd like to
Nope.
gift to our audience
Nope.
today?
Nope.
All right. Well, I want to thank
Work
everybody.
hard, have fun.
I want to thank everybody for participating today. That would be Greg and John Vorhaus here on the Law Offices of Quibble, Squabble, and Bicker.
Your consultation with the law offices of Quibble, Squabble, and Bicker has ended. You may pay your retainer at www.qsblaw.org. Please exit to the right of the water cooler and grab a candy from the front desk. We hope to see you again soon, but you need to leave now. I said leave. Why don't they even listen? Get out! Get out!